you clearly how I won, and I could tell you clearly something about what they say a great lawyer is. They say a great lawyer could argue pro or con, which is true, which only proves he's a great manipulator. And all these great manipulators, where are they coming out of? Harvard. So it's not about truth and justice and honesty anymore. It's about manipulation using psychology. And how I know this? Because I was recently incarcerated for 2 attempted murders that I didn't even do. They attempted to give me 5 years, a 5-year deal, which for me, an innocent man, was a lot of time. But everybody in there was telling me to take the deal because they were threatening me with 2 life sentences. I said, I'm not going to plead guilty. I'm tired of running. This is my fight. I'm going to fight back because I'm going to be locked up and I have kids and I love my kids and my heart is dedicated to my family and my kids, and I want my kids to grow up in a better world. So I'm all positive.
He's a peaceful warrior.
I'm a peaceful warrior. Like I said, I spent 14 years in jail, in and out. 14 years collectively altogether. I'm 34 years old. Going back to the politicians, they got us divided between the left wing and right wing when it takes both wings to fly, right? One wing by themselves ain't gonna handle it. We're just in a cycle that we're not pulling out of. And what do we call that when you make the same choices over and over and you get the same results? I thought that was called insanity. Sorry to tell all of you, whoever side you're on, because in reality, we came from a Republican, went to a Democrat, and we're going back to a Republican, and we all should know the truth. And the truth is that the conservatives, I give them credit for saying that the media is left wing, but now it's up to the left wing and saying, well, actually, we understand. Really, what you should say, the media is not part of you, but let us tell you, the left wing, no, they do not represent the left wing. They don't represent us. And since we have false leaders, none of our left wing leaders will say that. And so it's up to us, we the people, to tell them it's no longer going to happen. We need both sides coming together. And the only reason we have 2 political parties is because it was made on purpose that way. And if you really see it, it's all about psychology. It's about masculine and feminine. To be a balanced human being, you have to have your masculine and your feminine to be balanced. If you go in any direction, masculine turns to macho. You be a macho, and then you went into extremity. And on the right, well, then you become what you become, a fascist, right? If you go to the extreme. But that's from my understanding. Or you do like that guy that just shot up everybody in Europe. So either way, the extremity is going to damage you. I'm not saying, we all got to be centrist or whatever. I'm just saying we should all not keep labels, because what is a label? A label is your past action. For example, if you were a coward your whole life, your label is a coward. But today, if you decide to no longer have fear, then whatever way you die because of what you do, let's say you fight for what you believe in and you die fighting for what you believe in, but then people are going to say, oh, he was a coward, but can you believe that? They're going to say, damn, he's courageous. So a label is like taking a picture and putting it on the wall. It's just a picture of you, but really we're like movies. Like that's just a piece of our life, a label. We could be anything we want. It's up to us to choose to grab and define ourselves and be creative. And see, the opposition in our country hasn't gone nowhere because all of us are infiltrated. And not only are we all infiltrated, but the opposition, the elite created the choices, multiple choices, A through B or A through C or A through Z, how many choices you want, but it's their choices. So you could choose whatever you want as an opposition to fight back, and you're not going to win. Nobody's won. People have been fighting since the longest, since Martin Luther King fought. He won the argument that we're all created equal. But yet, it's not true. I would say that in the case going back to my murder trial, since I fought it, they threatened me with 2 life sentences, but I still fought it, and by me participating in my defense, I got an acquittal in 15 minutes. So 12 people clearly saw that I was innocent in 15 minutes of deliberation. And let me tell you, it's a long story, but I'll just get to the main points. On the closing arguments, in our judicial system is unfair just to begin with, because the DA gets a closing argument, and then defense is in the middle, and then the DA says his final story to clean up whatever you had to say, which is unfair in itself. It should just be one closing argument and another closing argument. I'm talking about the end of the trial, once the jury is presented with all their evidence and they could decide, are you guilty or not. So in my situation, the DA gave his closing argument, and I just took down notes of every word he had to say that had to do with psychology and emotions, and I had a long list, and I told my lawyer as soon as that guy was finished, I told my lawyer, read this list and explain to the jury that they are there by law to obey the law, the truth, facts, and justice, and that they must put their emotion to the side. And so thankfully they did, because they were very upset when my lawyer was going word by word by word by word, all the words that guy was saying, because the jury was now paying attention, like what's the connection with all these words. And then my lawyer tells them, these words, what they have in common is they all have an emotional, psychological connection. And when the jury connected everything, they seen that the DA was trying to use basic psychology, which works, because people find people guilty even though they don't have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, because they think themselves, which is human, that if they're not guilty of that, they might be guilty of something else because they're such a horrible human being. So that works, and you could look at that scientifically by looking at the patterns once again, because the incarceration rate of convictions is going up and up and up, not because they're just masters of manipulation. For example, the DA wanted me to parade around the jury showing my tattoos, because I got flats on my stomach and an AK. So he was saying that I'm a threat because I have an AK on my chest, just to give that psychological impression to the jury. But the judge thankfully said no, the picture was sufficient, because I was not contesting that I have tattoos. I do have tattoos, and I got those tattoos as a child, or all of them except this one. Anyways, my whole point being is that we need to not elect any incumbent. They must be responsible for their actions, and that's like the first step. And then the second step is recognizing that the Federal Reserve is not part of our government, even though they use labels to manipulating us once again. Like I said, look, Federal Reserve sounds like they're part of our government, right? But they're not. Yeah, they have a government-looking building with the American flag out front and everything, but they're not part of our government, even though they hijacked our currency. And I say hijacked, well, actually it was not hijacked, because our government, they abdicated their duty in 1913 and legally gave it to them. And so they dictate our currency. They tell us what our currency's value, what's the interest rate's going to be, and so forth. And since they could create money out of thin air, yes, create money out of thin air, and they admit it repeatedly, and even in the supposedly LA Times left-wing newspaper, they create money out of thin air. But the only problem is putting it into the system. So they have something called the QE1. They did it successfully, got away with it. Now they're finishing up QE2, or they barely finished it. Now they're starting off for QE3, and what they're doing is they're printing over 600 billion fake money at a time. But it's not really fake. Well, it is fake, but it becomes real, because then our government are complicit in the transaction by accepting that fake money and giving them treasury notes, which are gold, because they're based on our sweat and our labor. They're based on our backs, their insurance. So these people get treasury notes, and we get that fake money, which really just robs the value of everybody else's money. So everything's getting more expensive and more expensive, because there's more dollar bills chasing the stuff. And it's going to happen like in Russia, where it takes a wheelbarrow to buy stuff, and it's on purpose. So because our nation is a powerful nation, and we could get out of this mess. We have plenty of money, but we just don't have plenty of money for them to continue the corporate welfare. And if you pay attention, what really is happening, we have massive movements towards human rights, and we've been winning up until recently, and dramatically everything changed after 2000. And the issue about 9/11, I still haven't heard anything going towards who's responsible, and I could point it out. For example, most of the people that hijacked that plane were from Saudi Arabia. The religion that they're based on is Wahhabi, comes from Saudi Arabia. The money that financed the operation came from Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden's family is one of the richest families in Saudi Arabia. The Al-Qaeda was financed and operated, and Bin Laden was working for the CIA before he did what he did. Is it a coincidence that Bin Laden went rogue, or was he really working with the United States? It needs to be questioned, because not only that, they didn't use basic police procedure after 9/11 when they put the no-fly zone, because the Saudi Arabians were allowed to leave. So when everything was pointing at Saudi Arabia, you would actually stop to question that, like, all the fingers were pointing in that direction, but yet we failed to question them and connecting the dots that they were pointing in that direction. And it begs to differ that we talk about human rights and so forth, but yet Saudi Arabia invaded Bahrain when they had their peaceful demonstration. And it begs to differ, do we really support democracy if Hamas get elected and then we isolate them and then we use their own people, the Egyptians, to cut off all access to basic food? And then when food is tried to take in, and food and other materials, the ship, the Maribara, was inspected before it even got to Israel, and then it was hijacked in international waters. But yet the same organization that says that they believe in law, and then the law that they say they stand in, which is the Proclamation of 1948 that gave Israel its nation, but yet they're still confused. Everybody's confused why that hasn't been resolved. How about we let the people return back home, the refugees that are living in Jordan, Lebanon, Iran, everywhere else. There's Palestinians that are generations of refugee camps in other countries, destabilizing those countries repeatedly. Like in Lebanon, there was a war with the PLO, and now you have the situation with them trying to get United Nations recognition. But really, the main issue about that recognition is they're trying to get access to the international war crimes. So what are these people afraid of? Them letting let a neutral party hear the story. Let them have access to the war crimes. Are you guys afraid that there's going to be proven? Because let me tell you about Iran. They're trying to lead us to war with Iran. But yet Iran, if you pay attention to their history, when the Shah was in control, these people were beg. They were proclaimed that they were treated like royalty and I'm speaking about Israel and their relationship with the Shah. They were just looting and taking it, and then they were using the money that they were pulling out of Iran in order to invest in creating more military arms for Israel, in a deal that Israel was supposed to then give the Shah that military technology and equipment. But yet then, when they had the Iranian Revolution, and now the Iranians they took control of their destiny. And now the real issue about Iran is not really about who they are, what they stand for. The real issue about Iran is because they have oil, like Libya. When Gaddafi, to be honest, when Gaddafi first said that there were terrorists trying to invade